Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Darlington Locomotive Works. We're not going to call it Darlington Locomotive Works 2. That sounds like a Rocky film, doesn't it? It's just going to be Darlington Locomotive Works. We are privileged, I think, to have a magnificent facility on this scale. And I can't picture, actually, anywhere else in railway heritage in the UK that is so beautifully equipped. Now, this is not just about this building. This building is one element only of the Darlington Rail Heritage Quarter concept. And we are a major stepping stone on the route to preparing for the 200th anniversary. I have that effect on my children as well, sorry. This is one stepping stone on the way to the celebration of the 200th anniversary of course, of the Stockton and Darlington Railway in September 2025. The other component parts of the project, in addition to this amazing facility, is the redevelopment of our former home at Hopetown Lane, the redevelopment of the old goods shed in the grounds of the Head of Steam Museum, the redevelopment of the Head of Steam Museum. It's a phenomenal amount going on here, folks. The building of a connecting footbridge between this building and next door. Don't worry, those of you who've been to the viewing gallery, that rather frightening door is not for the lemmings who haven't enjoyed their visit here. That will actually go across a bridge, so there'll be real connectivity. In that direction, about 400 yards away, is the 1861 engine shed, of which we get half of that as well for storage. But in the short term, our half will be a temporary home for North Eastern Locomotive Preservation Group. And on top of that is a significant amount of railway infrastructure, including about 700 to 800 yards of running line down past the rolling mills. This facility will be enhanced with rail connectivity, and we will have a connection onto the main line, which is absolute plus. And finally, we aspire to build a turntable just in front of McDonald's. There is no coincidence there, by the way, folks. We're not providing entertainment for the customers of McDonald's. It just happens to be where the optimum location for the turntable is. What that means is that we go from being an organisation with a building in which we can build things and do some minor repairs. From those limited objectives, we now have a facility in which we become able to support mainline rail operations, because all of a sudden, if you can bring an engine off the main line, we have watering facilities, we have coal facilities, and in due course a turntable. We've got everything you need to make a visit by a mainline tour to Darlington not just desirable but very practical. And clearly there is a business model for us to develop there in terms of our relationship with other mainline operators. So this is not just a new Darlington Locomotive Works as it was before. The opportunity that presents itself to us commercially, as well as from a heritage perspective, is absolutely phenomenal. It does require a complete mindset change on the part of us in terms of our business model and in terms of our governance. Because what we want to do is to make sure that we extract every pound of value from the assets that we have got. Now, we are eternally grateful to Darlington Borough Council. This is their facility, we don't own it. Although we will own the track, by the way, that's going to be laid by us in due course. But Darlington Borough Council are the custodians and owners of this building, £4.5 million invested in this facility. And in my view, that, and that of my colleagues, that is a major sign of the confidence that the town has in us as an organisation. I used to think, until recently, that we were the only people building railway engines in Darlington. With another hat on, I discovered the delights of North Bay Engineering down the road, who are also building locomotives, and an extraordinarily powerful organisation they are too. So there is a great railway heritage of this town that has not been lost, and in fact it's growing. And the investment that you see all around you is tangible evidence of that, because Darlington wants to play its part on the world stage. Every railway around the world can trace its heritage back to 1825 in this town. And hopefully the celebrations in 2 years' time will take that message to the world. Now, it's been a challenging year. You've all been watching the reports. You've been reading avidly the journals that we put out. And there's no point denying that it has been an interesting exercise for the last 18 months. Tornado, the challenge of getting it back on the main line has been interesting, let's put it that way. There has been twists and turns. The fitting of European train control system to the engine, which is an extraordinary achievement, actually. We are the first locomotive in the world to get this new scientific space-age signalling system. And that sets us fair to be a market leader in demonstrating the capability of this equipment in a steam context. But that has also been a challenge, because when you're the first of something, it takes a long time to iron out the problems, but we're nearly there. And it is quite extraordinary. I think I posed the question. We already had about 3 miles of cable on the engine from all the electronics. I think we've now got about 6 miles of cable on the engine. And trying to integrate electronics with the hostile environment of a steam locomotive with steam, smoke, sulfur, you name it, is no mean feat. But I'm blessed with a team in every department that pulls together to make these things happen. What's that horrible phrase? A problem is the start point to a solution. Well, it's that attitude that has been seeing us through. Prince of Wales behind you. I'm delighted that we are in the presence of the Prince of Wales today. Prince of Wales visually does not seem to have made much progress since you probably last saw it, but that belies the fact that some significant things are about to happen. The first of the new boilers in Germany will be delivered pretty soon, actually, once we've done various checks and so on. And once we've got Tornado's boiler out of here, that will occupy that spot. The cylinder block is virtually finished. The machining is, and you will have seen the quite most extraordinary images of this thing. It's like a Henry Moore sculpture. In fact, I'm rather loath to use it. I don't want to get dirty. And so that's coming back soon as well. And we're well on track to starting to get this thing looking like a decent engine. What I'm not going to do is go down that fatal route of all railway preservationists and say, oh, it'll be ready on X day, only to have to eat my words. But I promise you, as investors in this machine, we will do it as quickly and efficiently as is humanly possible. It would be nice for it to be in steam in 2025. My sense is that is probably too ambitious. I hate quoting Boris Johnson, but this is an oven-ready engine. You know, we can spend the money as fast as you send it to us. The valve gear needs a little bit more design work, but other than that, we're there. Just give us the cash. Now, in every sense, we traditionally refer to this as a Gresley P2. Well, the reality is it's a Gresley Elliott P2. And I think that's how we should always refer to this engine, as a Gresley Elliott P2, because David has done so much of the redesign work. Aesthetically, nothing's changed. But under the covers, this is an engine that fundamentally needed some sorting out at the end of the 30s, but it didn't happen for a variety of reasons, not least the Second World War coming along and Gresley dying prematurely. But David has picked up where they should have gone at the end of the 30s, early 40s, and has taken it to its next logical conclusion. So when you hear this thing purring along on the main line, coming out the chimney will be so much of David Elliott's personal DNA. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, but... As to the further developments of this building and what we are trying to achieve, the next step is, and this is a commitment placed on us by the council, but we've agreed to it, in exchange for a rent for this building, which is no greater than that we paid for the old works. Now that's an extraordinary position to be in, but we have committed to providing the railway track that will connect this building to the various other facilities. I'm delighted to say that the Army has already been here on a reconnaissance, and in October a track laying exercise will begin, and we will start the process of showing progress. And actually the Army, I'm an ex-soldier myself as well, so have some contacts, but others amongst the trustees also have great contacts in this respect. And the Army's railway organisation are fundamentally people who are full-time professional railwaymen who, in the interest of serving their king and country, put on a different uniform at weekends, and we're delighted to welcome them. The main effort for laying track will actually be from the beginning of next year. For the eagle-eyed amongst you, if you walk from here down past McDonald's to the 1861 shed, there's a brick wall on the left. Peer over it and you will see hundreds, well, at least 1,400 concrete sleepers, all stockpiled for the job, courtesy of Network Rail and others. And we have significant quantities of track in place. And the fittings, I think a few bags of springs or clips or something turned up the other day. So we've got the gear in place. We still need a bit more. We need points. In fact, some points are being delivered in the next couple of weeks. But that is a major commitment and on our behalf. But we will continue to own that track. We obviously don't own the formation on which it sits, but we would own the materials. And we are keen for support in that respect. Without that rail connectivity, this building is suboptimal. And without the turntable, the Rail Heritage Quarter concept, as I keep telling the council and our local MP, is unfinished business. As to you lovely people, well, it's a horrible phrase, isn't it? But it's a bit of a dream factory here. When I talk to you, you've all got very different reasons for being part of the team. But there's one thing that glues everybody together, and it's the love of the inspiration that goes into the concept. And that concept, of course, is building brand new steam locomotives. I rather foolishly, with a journalist, likened this place to Jurassic Park. And what we do is we take the DNA of long dead dinosaurs and we bring them back to life. Well, we know what happened at the end of Jurassic Park. It all went badly, so I think the analogy is a bad one. But what we're here to do is to, if you like, play out your dreams. And I think we all want to see our dreams become real. And the best way to see your dreams become real, folks, and this is where it gets a bit cheesy, is to dig deeper and to get out there and tell your mates about what amazing stuff we do. Because the reality is we've been around for 30 years, and I'm sure that my colleagues across the railway heritage sector will hate me for this, but I believe that this concept is the best way of ensuring that mainline steam exists in 30 years. Old engines get older. There is nothing better than starting off with brand new metal and designing in the modern systems, signalling and so on, that are required for the mainline from the outset, instead of retrospectively bolting the stuff on. I was reminded by Sophie, our marketing director, that if you started paying £5 a month in 1990, well, actually, the equivalent buying power today has gone up to £11.57. That's an inflationary factor. So if you're thinking about giving yourself that early Christmas present, all right, don't spend it on the kids, don't spend it on the grandchildren, all right, spend it on this. Now, why should you do that? Well, first of all, the product. Secondly, people invest in people. And I do hope you get a sense that despite the trials and tribulations of the organisation, the fact of the matter is we have a supremely efficient and resilient team here, which only gets better, and it rises to the challenges. The worst thing you want is a team that's spending your money that collapses under the pressure at the first sign. That's never going to happen. Railway Heritage is not a straightforward organisation, business. You have to assume that the unexpected will happen. And if you don't, you'll fall foul. But we've got a great team, we've got a fantastic facility, And in you folks, we have got the most amazing supporters. So in summary, welcome. The convention is a great occasion. This is a great occasion. Our main connectivity with you is normally through correspondence and your money arriving and bank accounts and so on. But there is nothing better than the warmth of the collective body that I stand in front of me. And I can see some smiling faces. You're either happy or just laughing at me. I'm not sure which. But there is this great glue that binds us together. And I suspect that you'll be hard-pressed to find the strength of this anywhere else. And we hope that you all feel part of this great team. So that's the end of my bit, folks. We're going on to what I call a mini part 2. The first thing is that we're not just here to celebrate the past, but we're also here to celebrate the future and to bring on young people in terms of developing their engineering skills. And I'm delighted that one of our apprentices, Ed Laxton, has now completed his apprenticeship recently. It's a machinist apprenticeship through Darlington College. And a major focal point for that, of course, has been the guiding hand of David Elliott. It's literally just come through. I'm going to invite David to present the certificates to Ed. We might need to engineer some photographs, but where are you, Ed? Ed, hiding there, mate. Now, Ed has got several strings to his bow. The key one is that he is also a very accomplished drone pilot. So a lot of the stuff you've been seeing, the aerial shots, has been Ed flying the plane. So, David, you can do the honours.
Thank you. I'll do my best without the microphone. I am very, very pleased after 3.5 years of time that Ed has spent with us, when he's done a variety of things, but primarily here as an apprentice machinist. And this came about because before Ed arrived, we'd had 2 years attempting to appoint a manual machinist to do work for us. The problem is, they are like rocking horse dropping. And the reason for this is the colleges today are teaching people to drive computer numerically controlled machines, which is logical because that's what industry wants. But as a result, the time they spend driving manual machinery is minimal, and they're not getting the skill set from it. And so we worked to a certain extent with BEST, which is the Boiler and Engineering Skills Trust, as an initial start. Got in touch with Darlington College, and they put a course together for him which suited what we were doing. The result is he's now able to use this, well, part of it's relatively modern, but the lathe is basically older than Ed by quite a lot of chalk. And as we announced when we first received it, it was a lathe from Aldi. Now, you wouldn't normally think this, but we have a large Aldi depot here in Darlington. One of our volunteers was friendly with their plant manager, and the plant manager said, "We've got this lathe you might be interested in purchasing from us," which apparently they'd acquired about 20 or 30 years ago to true up the plastic wheels on the tall supermarket trolleys they use for delivery to the individual shops once they've got flats on them. Well, of course, they don't do that anymore, they just fit a new plastic wheel. Steve Wood, who was our contact here, went in and said, "We are, of course, a charity, and we very much appreciate a donation." And lo and behold, they gave it to us. And it turns out that it's an excellent little lathe. There's nothing vaguely electronic about it, but it's precise and more to the point, Ed hasn't fallen out with it yet. We also have we have another lathe which we're hoping to receive soon, a rather bigger one. So he's got his selection of manual lathes. The milling machine has actually got some modern electronics on it to tell you where its tool is, which is very helpful. But this is great, and Ed has risen to this, produced some excellent work. I hope some of it's on the bench in front of the lathe where you'll be able to see what he's been up to. More recently, he's been learning about how to put steam engines back together again. assisting with fitting the cladding of Tornado. He's a good all-rounder, and we're very, very pleased with the result we've got with him. And it's all, apart from anything else, it helps us with our purpose, which is an educational charity. Now, we do most of this by having yourselves, or and equally the general public coming in regularly, doing talks, explaining how steam engines work and what we're doing. Of course, if we can actually say we've trained an apprentice, that really adds brownie points. Right, well, Ed, I'm going to pass you over this collection of bits of paper here, which has come from the college and elsewhere. And we wish you all the best. We hope you stay with us for some time, but even if you don't, we wish you all the best in your future career. And please at least keep droning for us. I'm still here. I'm on a second round of chemo at the moment. The long-term prognosis is not good. Indeed, my oncologist, when I pressed him earlier in the year, said, well, you've got months rather than years to go now. The upside is the one I've got appears to be fairly slow, and the latest load of chemo appears to be working. Although the only trouble with it is it makes you feel exhausted most of the time. This doesn't stop me driving the computer or coming into the works every now and again and pointing at things and asking people to put things right. So I'm still very much involved. Crucially, something that I've been starting over the last few months is to prepare what I call the brain dump. I've almost completed the first of these, which is an hour to hour and a half long presentation on PowerPoint on the processes we have gone through to design Tornado and the P2. The basic process is much the same. We've just gone rather further with the P2 than with the A1. Once this is complete, I'm going to do a Zoom with the engineering team and one or two others who may be involved with this to download that part of my brain. That will be recorded, and alongside this will be a series of folders on our central computer system here, which is called David Elliott's Brain Dump. And that will refer people where to go for the various reference documents that I use all the time with this process. For example, if we're not sure of a material, we refer to the London Midland Region's Mechanical and Electrical Engineers Department 1957 document called Materials for Steam Locomotives, which is excellent. The only trouble is it turns everything into BR standard specifications, which aren't really understood today for steam. However, there's a couple of pages at the front which convert BR standard specs into British standards. And although these will almost certainly be superseded, once it's into British standard mode, you can get on the devil's window and find a modern equivalent of it. So that's one example. Other things is, when we're stuck for limits and fits, that's the clearance between a shaft and a bearing or something like that, where we have the Locomotive Manufacturers Association limits and fits booklet, which again we've now scanned, so it's readily available. And so if I need to know what the correct clearance is between a crosshead and slide bars, I refer to that, and that then features on the drawings. And more importantly, with this being readily available on our internal computer system, anybody who follows me can do the same. So there's a lot of work going into this at the moment, because unfortunately, because I'm notoriously bad at writing things down, it's all in there. We're using this method to do the brain dump, as I call it, to try and transfer as much of the stuff that's in my head onto some sort of recorded media. And the idea is that the actual presentations themselves will be recorded, so if my successors need to look for something, they can just watch the presentation again, and that will point them then to the right part of the computer system to find the raw data that's involved. Otherwise, I am still involved with doing things here. As the chairman has pointed out what we're doing on the P2 at the moment. There is work going on, because with boiler, we've got a set of tender frames under construction, and we hope within the next few weeks to have the cylinder block here. It's undergoing hydraulic testing at the moment. This is almost invariably a variable, something as big and complex as that. A bit of it's leaked, so they've had to do a little bit of grinding out of welds and re-welding to stop it doing that. We're hoping that we will have a clear result shortly, which will mean we will have an exciting 5.5-ton lump of metal, which my colleague on the left here and several others are extremely keen that we try on the engine as soon as possible. This is for two things. One, it's obviously a massive publicity opportunity, and it's also a perfect opportunity to pour huge amounts of opprobrium on me when it doesn't fit. I'm doing my best to ensure that it does. Otherwise, we're still able to keep certain amounts of manufacturing going on in more restricted areas. Several of you will be, as Steve mentioned, this building, fantastic as it is, and what I'm so impressed about is that, considering the discussions we had in early days, I am very impressed the way in which our Paul Bruce, who's been our principal link with the council, the contractors and Network Rail, because he does actually work for Network Rail from time to time, which helps, has actually managed to put almost everything we asked for into practice, and it's here. And I keep sort of thinking, where are we going to plug that in? And look at the wall, and there's a socket for it. You know, it's just simple stuff like that. The one thing we hadn't got out of this, and that was mainly a budgetary constraint, is that we've still to rig up the portable electric pump for emptying the pit out there. As the funding wouldn't run to a fixed one. However, that's not unusual. A lot of the heritage railways we go to have a submersible pump which they drop into the pit when it fills up with water. And it will become semi-permanent anyway, so you won't really notice when the pit's got water and you just press the switch and 5 minutes later it's empty. So, yeah, it really is impressive. I'm waiting to see what it's like in the winter to see how effective the ground source heat pump is at actually warming us up in here. Because, of course, the previous place had gas, which is now verboten, but very good. I really don't have very much more to add, in as much as Steve covered nearly everything I could think of. But thank you very much for listening to me. I propose to stay here till I get to the point where I've just got to go and sit down. If you are speaking to me, because I'm on chemo, I'm effectively shielding, which is why I'll be wearing a mask. I'm not shaking hands, and I'd be grateful if you could stay 1.5 meters back or something, just to give me a reduced chance of catching anything today. Okay, thank you. Finally, apart from the health issues, if it wasn't for you lot, I wouldn't be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all the talking from this end. I think you'll agree with me that David is an inspirational figure and has done so much for us.